Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Oh, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 523 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And ladies and gentlemen, you know we have lots of great artists here on the show, and from time to time we've even had the children of great artists here on the show. And we find out all about their record collections, rare recordings, growing up with them, etc. Most recently, we had Shooter Jennings on the show, but in the past, we've had the likes of John Carter Cash, multiple Zappa siblings, etc. Well, today, we've got the son of another legend on the show talking about the work of his father. It's Jack Prine discussing his father, John Prine, and Jack is still working in the family business, most recently being an exec producer on the new film You Got Gold, a celebration of John Prine, and this is a really great film, really is. Largely concert footage and interviews of many artists discussing their love and respect to the late John Prine, and today his son Jack and I discuss not only the film, but growing up with John Prine, the stories, the early records, the recordings. We discuss the record label John started in the 80s, Oh Boy Records. We talk about balancing the family grief with that of the fans and collaborators of John, and a whole lot more. Jack is a lovely dude, huge heart, and I think you'll all want to check out this movie, You Got Gold, a celebration of John Prine. It's doing a limited theater run, which I think is the perfect way to see it. Quite frankly, watching it on the laptop just wasn't the same for me. I want to see it on the big screen, ideally with a bunch of other John Prine fans to really absorb it. So check out the screening dates: New York, Chicago, Sarasota, Columbus, Vancouver, way more cities. And the full list and ticket links are at yougotgoldmovie.com. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Jack Prine, all on the celebration of his father, John Prine. All right, well, this week on the show, we're very honored to have Jack Prine, son of John, who is celebrated in so many ways. Presently in a movie, You Got Gold, a celebration of John Prine. Lots of screenings around the U.S. and beyond. Go to yougotgoldmovie.com, and if it's in your location or drivable, definitely make the journey. It's a beautiful film. Jack, can you tell us a little bit about how this? Now we'll do a deep dive into your pop and some of the earlier years, but about this movie, it's pretty stellar. It's pretty beautiful. Tell us about how it came together.
So really, it all kind of started with my mom, Fiona. Has had a long relationship with Radical Media and a friendship with John Kamen over at Radical. And they were just talking for a very long time about trying to figure out a way to collaborate on a project, you know, surrounding my father. And it kind of coincided with the filming of the very first You Got Gold concert series that we held in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, to give you some background, this concert series has been an annual thing since 2022, and it benefits our foundation, the Hello in There Foundation. This was something that we started right after my father passed away in April of 2020, and it kind of helped us like navigate through all the grief we were feeling as a family. I think it also just gave us some purpose and direction, you know, to deal with that loss and, you know, try to bring some good into the world. So basically, Radical Media sent director Michael John Warren to shoot the 2 nights of the Ryman that we did in the year 2022.
It must be a real challenge to balance, I guess, the grief that the family has with the sharing, the grief of the community. I'm sure you've had to deal with it, the thought about it. How did you guys approach that, or how did you work with that balance?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because we've definitely talked about that as a family. It's kind of us dealing with our own personal grief of losing, a father and uh, a husband. And, he was just such a pillar in our family. Um, and then when you look on the other side of the coin, he had a huge fan base of people who felt very, very close to him through his music and through his career. And so it's kind of two different forms of grief, but at the end of the day, it's having an event like You Got Gold to get together, and it's such a unifying experience to kind of deal with that grief and that sadness. And it's like, it's a celebration of his life, of his songs. And so it made sense, to have something like that.
Oh, yeah. And there's even that third crowd of his collaborators,
Right.
Bonnie Raitt, Lucinda Williams, and all these people who show up in the film and sing some of his songs. This is their way of acknowledging as well. But it's a beautiful testament. And I'm so glad it's doing screenings, because I think seeing this film, especially within the community and on the big screen, I think is probably the best way it can be presented.
Yeah, I mean, it is very, we're in the music industry, so it was very new territory for us in the whole production of a film. I will say, though, when we finally did get a chance to see it screened in a theater, it's really, really gratifying, you know. And we're so excited that, it's going to be rolling out in theaters across the U.S., and that all of my dad's fans are going to get an opportunity to go see this film and just kind of get lost in all the performances and stories. And
Yeah, it's beyond just a concert. It also shows footage of him. It tells the story a bit. It's funny. My wife, my wife puts up with a lot, Jack, and and we had the screener. Thank you for that. And she wasn't familiar. Who's John Prine? But as soon as we started watching it, she knew like so many songs. Like she was able to sing along. She just wasn't familiar with the man who wrote them. She was so familiar with the songs. So again, there's this very broad audience who knows John Prine, and there's an even broader audience that knows John Prine even though they don't think they know John Prine.
Right. And I think that's kind of one of the coolest parts of this movie for me, is seeing how you have a lot of my father's peers. Like you've got Dwight Yoakam, Lucinda Williams, Ryman, Jack Elliott. And it kind of, they have stories of my dad early on in his career, and it's just so cool seeing that. And then you also have this new kind of age of artists, the Tyler Childers, Jason Isbell, Brandy Carlisle, artists who, opened for my father when they were kind of just getting started. And it's such a beautiful marriage of kind of those two eras of musicians and songwriters, and the common denominator being just their love for my dad's music and for him as a person. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah. And Bob Weir comes out and kicks ass too.
Right.
How often do you hear stories about your father that you didn't know before?
I'd say like once in a blue moon now. I feel like I've heard like
Okay.
everything. I feel like I've heard everything that's like worth hearing. I mean, the stuff that I really love is when I'll hear a story from a family member or one of his friends who I like maybe haven't seen in a while, and they like remember something. But Yeah, it's funny just because, there are some stories that people tell about him, such as Tyler Childers starts out the film telling a story about being on the road with my dad, and my dad had a Dairy Queen coupon in his wallet.
Yeah.
Just it was for an ice cream cake from Dairy Queen, and he had it just in case he needed it, on the off chance, that something might come up. And I love how, seeing hearing fans, when they hear that story and they think it's just hilarious and like, very quirky. But when I hear that story, I'm just like, that's so him. Like
Yeah.
that's just who he was.
The story that I love has probably been told a million times. He co-wrote the song "You Never Even Called My Name" with David Allan Coe, but he didn't remember it. Apparently, he was pretty inebriated, so he rejected the songwriting credit, and it turned out to be a huge hit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, who amongst us hasn't written a hit song while drunk?
I forgot about it.
Yeah. When did you come to learn that your family was different than the other families around you?
I'd say like pretty early on, but probably more so when like I started going to school, when I was old enough to go to school, and then kind of seeing, what my friends' parents did for work. And it's funny because like even then I almost like I think I even now I gain more appreciation the older I get for what my dad did and how good he was at doing what he did.
And how
But
unique it was too.
right, exactly. But yeah, I would say like pretty early on, just because my dad was, he was on the road a whole lot when I was a kid. But that's just kind of like my family was used to it, we made it work.
Mm-hmm. So you'd be showing up to school and the teacher would be doing roll call and they get to the P's. Jack Prine?
Yeah. Well, actually, so my legal name is actually John Patrick Prine. And when I was enrolled in school, and it wouldn't happen too much when I was like in elementary school, but I remember the first day of high school. I was at a new high school and they were like doing roll call and they go John Prine. And it was my history teacher who was a big fan, and he like looked just like befuddled, And then I was like, actually, it's Jack,
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So Jack came because you needed that separation.
Right.
Okay. He didn't immediately set up a parent teacher conference. We need to talk.
No.
We recently had Shooter Jennings on the show, and he spoke about connecting with other siblings of roaming musicians. Did you have kind of a similar community? I mean, being in Nashville, I would imagine that, there's other kids of musicians, touring musicians that you would bond with.
No, not like surprisingly, not really. Me and Tommy had like, a pretty tight friend group. But like there was never really much of a, musicians, kids friend group. But this sounds like it would be pretty cool to be a part of,
Yeah. It wasn't. Well, these days it'd be a group chat or whatever. But
yeah, exactly.
So you got interested in the music industry as well. Yeah. How did you start on that path?
So, it kind of took me a while to realize that it was something that I wanted to be in. And it was about almost 3 years ago when, I started kind of really getting an itch to just, start working in the family business, basically. Um, my mom uh took over running the label like after my dad passed away, and my older brother Jody has been the head of the label for um gosh, I want to say a little over 10 years. Um and it wasn't really too much like I didn't really go too much back and forth about it, because I always kind of like thought like, the opportunity is there, but I never really had like any, I guess, fire to go into it. But then it just kind of like, it came up one day and I like talked to them and they're like, yeah, like, let's try it out. And then got the opportunity to help put together You Got Gold the past few years as one of the event producers on there. And then this year got to be one of the producers on this movie, on the You Got Gold movie. And so it's kind of been, it's definitely been an interesting past few years, but I love it because it is kind of just very natural, for my family. It's just the business that we've always kind of known.
When you start to look at your skills, and I realize you're still pretty early in life and developing all those, what do you think? What is the most interesting bit of that? Is it the creative bit? Is it the organization? Is it the collaboration? What is it that I guess you like to lose sleep over because it's fun for you?
I do really like the whole, on the production side, whether it's putting on a show or making a movie, I genuinely love just like that whole, team effort, collaboration, working to kind of bring a vision into reality and then getting that like payoff, whether that be the week of You Got Gold when we have 4 shows in Nashville and daytime events and it's just nonstop. It just feels like really gratifying and, feels good. I'd say that's like probably my favorite part of it. It can be kind of stressful though. Like,
oh yeah. But that's part of the high. That's part of the adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
So you're part of Oh Boy Records.
Yep.
And Oh Boy Records is interesting for many reasons, but it was started by your father after he'd left Asylum. He wanted to have his own label, but it always seems like it was very much on the cusp of, I don't want to say new technology, but it was always very forward thinking. Like it started crowdfunding before we even had the tools for crowdfunding.
Right.
There were chat rooms and BBS boards before there was internet communities. So your father was a forward thinker in many ways, including in business, yeah?
Yeah, even to this day, we're incredibly proud of just, having such a good example of an independent model in the music industry. It is pretty funny, just like I still remember listening to my dad just like tell all the stories of when they first started out, and it's just like it's funny because like he I don't think he had any idea just like of how successful it would end up being. But he was just so tired of just major labels and having to jump through all the hoops working with them. And it worked out pretty well,
It's still going incredibly strong to this day.
Yeah.
The first record, and we deal a lot with rare records and recordings here. The first record on Oh Boy, I saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, the 7-inch.
Yeah.
That record is quite collectible. It's $100 if you could find it in decent shape. Do you know the story of that? How many were made? How they were distributed?
I don't know the story off the top of my head, but I remember this is pretty funny that my dad was like trying to get I'd say me and Tommy, my younger brother, we were about like 8 or 9 years old, and I remember my dad was trying to get us to go in and re-record that song, like just us singing it. um, so I don't know why that story always comes to mind when I talk about that single, but I'm not sure how many of those were made. I mean, it does make a lot of sense that is the first single that he put out because my dad just absolutely loved Christmas more than anyone I've ever met. Um, we still keep a Christmas tree up in the oh boy office year round because that's what my dad did. He would just have a Christmas tree up every single day of the year. And it's just so funny because it's like, it's just another thing that speaks to his like authenticity and just like how natural he was, just staying true to himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your dad have a big record collection?
He did. He didn't really listen to like a whole bunch of vinyl at home. He had this super rare collectible jukebox that was gifted to him. But he didn't really, apart from that, he wasn't like much of like a vinyl collector. That was something that me and him definitely started bonding over, I'd say, when I was like in high school, because I started getting into vinyl and I was like, I remember he got me Velvet Underground on vinyl and would just like pick up some records for me when he was on the road. And I think that kind of like got him a little bit back into it. But yeah, he didn't have a massive collection.
Well, if we were to look through your father's music collection, what's a record that's in there that you think would surprise a lot of people?
Oh man. I don't know if it would surprise a lot of people, but I remember when me and him, because I got really into listening to the Pixies, and I remember like he likes music too, and that is kind of like a random like because he wasn't like huge into alternative rock or anything like that, but yeah, I don't know if there'd be any like really big surprises. Me and him always are. I know it probably sounds cliche because they're one of the most popular bands of all time, but me and him really, really, really bonded over Beatles records. When me and him would go on fishing trips, we would just take a whole stack of Beatles CDs in the car and we just listened to them nonstop the entire trip. That's like kind of one of the big, a lot of the memories, really good memories I have are just me and him like on the road listening to the Beatles together.
Oh, that's beautiful. Did he have a favorite album? Do you know something that he kept going to?
Favorite album. I don't know about just like all time, but at least while I'm thinking about it, I know with the Beatles, he loved Rubber Soul. That was one of his favorite. He really loved the song In My Life. And that's kind of the song that always reminds me of him. That was something that I remember listening to a lot after he passed away.
That is such a beautiful song. That's my favorite Beatles song by far. And there's so many to choose from, but that is, I think, even more poignant than the others.
Yeah, it's just like it's very special to me.
What song of your father's has taken on a new meaning in recent years for you?
I don't know if there's one that's taken on new meaning, but I always do find myself kind of listening to different songs will just like hit me different as I've been going through, different stages in my life. Um, you know, I'd say lately I've been listening to a lot of songs just off his last album, off Tree of Forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I've Met My Love Today is one that I just really, really enjoy listening to. And, it's kind of funny because I'm going to be getting married in April. And so like sometimes I'll like be trying to figure out like which of my dad's songs do I want to play at the wedding?
Oh.
And it's like the hardest assignment ever that I've given to myself because it's like there's truly like too many to choose from.
You're gonna have a 4-hour wedding.
Oh, I know. It's gonna be tough.
How did your father write? Like, I would imagine you got to observe him in doing this, being creative and putting things down. I always imagined songs like your father wrote required kind of like the patience of a craftsman, or maybe they just kind of came out fully formed out of him. Like, what was your observation of how he created his works?
I think he would tell you himself even that like a lot of his earlier songs just kind of like came very natural to him and kind of poured out. I think it was a little bit more of a chore for him as he got older with like songwriting, because my mom would usually like kind of have to force him just out of the house to go, I mean, he wrote most of Tree of Forgiveness in a hotel in downtown Nashville. And I think he just liked having like some time, I think, to himself. Just like kind of like where he could shut off like everyone and everything and just kind of like, kind of live inside of his mind for a little while.
Get out of the routine. But that's interesting in a hotel because with all his touring around his life, I would imagine, correct me if you think differently, but I would imagine his natural habitat is a hotel. His natural habitat is that transitory
100%. 100%. Yeah, I mean, I still think, if he would have had his way, he probably would have like got his bathroom at my parents' house like remodeled into like a hotel kind of bathroom.
Has those little soaps. He has no idea what to do with the big soap.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that he just kind of he knew where he was comfortable and where I guess those his best ideas came from.
Mm-hmm. There's so many fans of his work. Did he ever talk to you about his relationship with John Belushi?
No, not really. So, I mean, like a lot of his kind of close friendships with like other celebrities, be it comedians or other musicians, I was kind of like present, I guess, for those because I was like older and I could hang out with them, like, if we were like in a bar or something. But so he was close with like Bill Murray, and spent a lot of time with Sturgill Simpson. I'm not really too sure though about like kind of the ones that predated me.
Yeah. You know the story about how he got on SNL?
Gosh, it's been a long time since I heard that one.
Yeah, sure. Well, apparently, he was on Saturday Night Live in 76, like in their first year or so. And this was a time when Saturday Night Live was almost an optional kind of It was very disposable. People would book onto the show and then they'd drop out because something else came up or whatever. So quite often they needed to have someone ready to replace a musician that couldn't make the show that night. And John Belushi was a big fan of your father's and kept pitching him to Lorne Michaels. And finally, I think the Beach Boys were booked and they dropped out. And, you know, they needed someone. They slot him in there. John Belushi did that a few times. But he's a big fan of your dad's and was persistent at it until Lorne finally just said, okay, we need him.
That's incredible. That's so good.
The Oh Boy record label logo. What's the story of that?
So it's just the like the Big Boy burger logo, basically, or like the face. It's kind of like almost like it's like that with a vinyl record almost for the nose.
Yeah, who came up with that? Because it's kind of been it's been with the label for decades now.
I'm not sure who designed the logo. It is kind of like, it's like iconic though, like in our little world, you know, John Prine, and I'm not sure who designed it though.
Oh, okay. I always imagined, I wonder if John sketched that out. I have all sorts of stories in my head that didn't happen, by the way.
I don't think he did. He wasn't like too much of a doodler, to be honest. It's kind of funny, like I'll like be going through, it was actually working on the movie. I had to spend a good amount of time going through the archive, you know, old pictures, handwritten lyrics and whatnot. But every now and then I would just find something random, just like kind of jammed in between a bunch of important documents. And this one was just like his handwriting in Sharpie, and it just said, I lost my phone. I'll be back later. And I guess it was just a note that he left on like the table of the kitchen. But it's like, you know, I'll find like random things like that, but not many doodles have been found yet.
Okay. All right. Do you know songs or recordings that are halfway done or outtakes? Are there a lot of those around?
Yeah. So we have, you know, we have a kind of a whole like treasure trove of, you know, unreleased recordings and demos, but it's just, you know, we like to just be intentional, you know, with how we like choose to like release stuff like that. And because I know a lot of fans are just like, you know, put it all out there, but you know,
it's not as easy as that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not that easy.
Okay, so you think, you know, for years, possibly decades to come, we may be able to see some additional recordings that will see the light of day?
Oh, 100%. 100%. We did just put out a deluxe edition of Lost Dogs and Mixed Blessings. And there's a brand new unreleased, unheard track on there called Hey Ah Nothing. And that was, you know, one of the tracks that we just came across listening to these old tapes of recording sessions right around that time period. So, you know, there's plenty of stuff, just kind of picking and choosing when and how we want to, you know, bring it to his fans.
Right. Okay. There's a lot of different artists along with John at Oh Boy Records, ohboy.com. I'll put the link in this episode page. Do you know if the Asylum or Atlantic recordings are back in the family's control?
No. We'll have the publishing back in 2 years.
Okay.
So, but the masters will never get those.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I heard a funny story about the first album. The cover of the album with him sitting on the bale of hay.
Yeah.
I read he was always kind of annoyed by that cover because he wasn't a guy who would sit on a bale of hay, he felt. Is
Oh,
that,
I know.
yeah?
Yeah, and he's from Chicago, and it's like made it seem like he's like a farmer or something.
Yeah, I always saw his the cover of Sweet Revenge as kind of his retort to that.
Style, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Because like I could just kind of I'm sure that in the moment he was, probably just happy as can be and would like, sit on any bale of hay.
Mhm.
But I would say, yeah, like as the years went on, he's probably like, man, like there's got to be a cooler cover album. But it works for it, and it's just kind of it's iconic and in itself now. To where I can't imagine like another picture being or another cover being used for that first album.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. But again, yeah, as you come to know him and his work, it's very
Yeah. It's
auspicious.
yeah.
Do you know if he had any recordings prior to that? Any self-release stuff or any even kind of from the early days of the Fifth Peg Folk Club? Any recordings from that era?
Uh, no, none that we've come across. Um, a lot of the stuff that we've been hearing is like from the early 90s and then, kind of like onward. Um, Nothing like before, the debut album.
Hmm. Okay, that seems to be his first recorded works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I'm sure if they had like I guess more technology available, he'd be making home demos, and I'm sure those would have sounded pretty great.
Was he technologically literate? I mean, could he run a 4-track
Um,
recorder or something?
that might be pushing it, honestly. I mean, he had a flip phone until he passed away. Like he refused to get an iPhone, and he was like good on he could get on the computer and look at cars on eBay. But like apart from that, he wasn't like super, you know, technologically, yeah, gifted.
Okay. Do you ever get himself in trouble, like bidding on a car or something like it?
I'm sure he did. He probably just never said anything about it because I know my mom probably would have lost her mind.
That's funny. So look, Jackie got the movie coming out, and again, links will be in this episode page to that. You've teased that there may be some new music on the horizon. We're not sure how long that'll be. What are you thinking the plans are for the next year or two for Oh Boy and the whole John Prine archive?
Yeah, so, we just wrapped up our last You Got Gold here in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a good run of doing it for the past 4 years, but we kind of felt like it was time to, you know, put a to kind of close the book on that event. And so we're looking at doing a lot of stuff next year. It'll be my dad's 80th birthday in October, which is, a very big milestone, for our family and for his career. So, we're looking at ways to celebrate that. It probably won't be in Nashville. Chicago might be a spot for that, but we're looking at that. And other than that, I mean, we're just always kind of trying to find good opportunities to continue to share more of my dad's work with his fans. And I'd like to think we're pretty careful and precise about it. So, you know, uh, we definitely have stuff coming. It's just, kind of a matter of planning and making sure it's the right time and that it feels right.
Yeah, you can tell there's a lot of thoughtfulness put into that. So I guess maybe final question. What's a lesson that you learned from your father about music, about life, about anything else? What would that lesson be?
Um, I'd say I'll say two. One would probably just be kind of just be cool and be, easygoing. Kind of life is too short to spend your time worrying and concerned about, what tomorrow might bring. Just live in the moment and enjoy the friends and the family that we have. And then the other lesson I would say is to give back to others. My dad I mentioned how much he loved Christmas, and he didn't love Christmas because of, receiving gifts. It was the giving gifts part of Christmas that he loved so much. And I think that's really what speaks to his just generosity, is that he celebrated Christmas all year round. And so he was always in that spirit of giving. And it's just something that, we think is equally as important. And it's kind of a good way that we've been able to keep his spirit alive and honor his memory.
That's interesting, because we talked about him in his natural, quote unquote, natural habitat. And he's used to looking out with the crowd of people and seeing the smiles on their faces and seeing them receiving what he's sending, the messages he's sending. And I guess that goes very much in line with what you just said about the type of person he was. Very benevolent, liked to ensure that others were having a good time and happy. And that sounds like a damn fine human.
Yeah, he sure was. We miss him a lot.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for spending time with us here. Again, I'll put some links in this episode page, but to all the listeners, if you get an opportunity to see You Got Gold, a celebration of John Prine in a movie theater, absolutely do it. It's a gorgeously filmed. We didn't even talk about how well it was filmed, the cinematography, the lighting. It's just beautiful. So again, yougotgoldmovie.com. And again, Jack, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's a good dude there, Jack Prine. I'm very interested to see what else is going to be coming out of the John Prine archive here in the coming years. Again, You Got Gold, a celebration of John Prine. Check out the screenings at yougotgoldmovie.com and go see it if you can. It's a beautiful film. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate everyone who's leaving those positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and various podcast platforms. Those of you who are sharing the episodes on social media, that's huge. And of course, those of you who are helping support the show at patreon.com/vinylguide. That is a huge help. Thank you so much, everyone who's been doing that. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, you all behave yourselves. And thanks again for listening to the Vinyl Guide podcast. Cheers.